I thought I knew her, thought our love was unbreakable. But that was before I found the pregnancy test, before I realized she was carrying another man's child. My wife, my Anne Marie, had betrayed me in the worst possible way. I didn't lose her to a stranger. I lost her to the man she worked with, trusted. Now, every moment of our past is tainted by her lies. I once believed we were forever, but now I'm left with nothing but the memory of the woman I thought I knew. I had been trying to calm down for a long time. I felt a mix of feelings like anger, regret, pain, jealousy, and sadness. But through it all, there was love. I had loved Anne-Marie Santos for most of my life. I had cared for her ever since I knew what love meant. In middle school, we were best friends. In high school, we were a couple. In college, we grew even closer. And when we finished, we got married. From our first kiss, I knew I wanted to marry Anne-Marie. My parents wanted me to date other girls because they worried we were too close at such a young age. I understood their worries, but it didn't change how I felt. I never felt like I needed to hold back or give up anything to be with Anne-Marie. If I had, we might have grown apart. I picked my college for its good classes, and it also had good options for Anne-Marie. We had many friends and hobbies that we enjoyed separately. We often spent time apart, but the best times were when we were together. She was my best friend, and later I married her. Anne-Marie and I had many differences. She was lively and outgoing, while I was more quiet and reserved. She was shorter, around 5'5", and I was taller at 6'4". She was full of energy, while I was usually calm. She came from a large family, but I was an only child. Anne-Marie liked sports, while I enjoyed studying and reading. She practiced her Catholic faith closely, while I believed in God but wondered about organized religion. I thought I was fairly good-looking, and she had a lovely charm. While neither of us was famous for our looks, we balanced each other well. I can't say exactly what brought us together, but it was real. As kids, she would tease me playfully, and I would try to be a gentleman. I would watch her play sports, and she would come to my debate contests. I always felt proud of her, no matter what she was doing, and her smile showed me she felt the same way. We didn't plan it, but we always found a way to be together. I never asked her to choose me over anything else, and she never wanted me to change. Yet somehow we always made each other a priority. We could talk about anything, our dreams, worries, and wishes. We shared so much, which made what happened next even more surprising and painful. I wasn't really sure about the idea of soulmates, but if anyone seemed to fit that idea, it was her. Our bond was deep and caring. It was about more than just liking each other. When I asked her dad if I could marry his daughter, he questioned me intensely. He wanted to know everything about our relationship. At first, I got nervous and stumbled through my answers, but then I saw Anne-Marie watching us from the porch through the window. I knew then that I had to be honest and stand firm in my answer. If I wanted to be with her, I needed to show it for real. I told him that she had touched my heart and made me feel things I hadn't felt before. I had decided to love her. I thought I knew what that meant, being there for each other through good times and bad, no matter what we faced. 3 years later, we had faced some tough times, and I was sure about my feelings. I still loved her and wanted her to be happy, even if I didn't feel happy myself. That's why I found myself alone trying to handle my emotions. She knew me well and could predict how I would react. I was sure she had thought about this. Even when feelings ran high, she understood my usual ways of dealing with things. In the past, my steadiness had made her feel safe, but now it meant she could choose for herself. But how I treated her was completely up to me. She was late coming home from work again. "I'm sorry to hear that things have been tough at your home lately. It's hard when you notice someone you care about is changing. The pain of not feeling the same love back can feel really heavy." When she entered the dining room, I noticed her, even though my thoughts were elsewhere. "Hi, Annie." "Hello, Gavin. Are you all right?" "No, not really. Can you please sit down for a moment so I can explain?" I had practiced what I wanted to say in my head, trying to keep my thoughts clear. I hoped I could make the right choices in this moment. I wanted to handle this situation with boldness and kindness, especially when it came to saying farewell to Anne-Marie. "Annie, I care about you a lot. I always have, and I will continue to. I don't want to argue or shout. I don't want to point fingers or make you feel bad. I think we should sit down together and talk about what to do next, okay?" Sure, Gavin. What do you mean? Her eyes showed her worry even though she tried to keep it hidden. Annie, what I want most is for you to be happy. I don't know why I feel this way, but I've been thinking about it since our first kiss. It's hard to say, but I can see that you are not happy with me. I saw tears starting to form in her eyes. It was strangely comforting to know that my choice to leave was having an effect on her, even if just a little. I really don't want to talk about the details. I'm scared that knowing too much will only hurt me more and make it harder to move on. I hope you don't think I'm weak, but if we could just agree that I see you aren't happy with me, I would be grateful. You know what I mean, right, Annie? She answered quietly. Yes, Gavin, I understand. Thank you, Annie. Your understanding gives me confidence that I'm making the right choice. Annie, I want us to end our marriage. Miguel Santos had a strength inside him that I had always admired. He and his wife Maria had raised 4 sons and 4 daughters in a small 3-bedroom house in a tough neighborhood. He was about 5'9" tall, with a strong body built from hard work and life on the streets. His tattoos and scars told stories of his life. I thought he was one of the strongest men I had ever met, but what really impressed me was his loyalty and love for his wife and family. I felt it was important to share my thoughts with him and let him know about my decision. We were sitting on his back porch having a few drinks when he encouraged me to tell him what was on my mind. Mijo, are you going to tell me what you came here to say? Yes, I want to, but it's harder than I thought. I hoped he would stay calm while I explained everything. Sir, I have cared for your daughter since the first moment I met her. I promised you on this porch that I would always put her needs first. I'm here today to explain that I believe what I said is true, even though I am saying goodbye to Anne-Marie. His reaction was what I thought would happen. He was unhappy with me, and we exchanged some strong words in English and another language. He wanted to understand why I made this choice. I couldn't give him the answers he wanted. Sir, I want to say that I care about your daughter a lot, and there are some things that are personal for us unless she decides to share them with you. It's hard for me to admit that my relationship with her hasn't worked out. But I think this is for the best. I hope you can understand my choice to talk to you face to face. I think you deserve that. After a while, he calmed down enough to go over some details. When I left, he looked confused and unhappy, but he let me go without saying anything else harsh. Anne-Marie didn't cry. She looked like she might, but she held back the tears. She didn't argue with me or say anything mean, which I was thankful for. Inside, I wished she might ask me to think things over, but she never did. I felt a sense of relief knowing that my decision to leave quietly was the right choice. The only time she showed any reaction was when I mentioned talking to her father. I spoke with your dad this afternoon. I explained what I need to tell you now. I hope we can finish this without making it harder than it needs to be. I want to avoid any money issues on top of everything else. I plan to leave once our divorce is complete. I have the papers ready, and there are a few ways to split our limited belongings. The biggest decision for you is about our house. Please look over the documents with someone you trust and let me know what you think by the end of next week. Okay, Gavin, I'll take a look. I can almost hear the sighs now. Why didn't I take a stronger stand with my wife and her new partner? The truth is, I didn't have those kinds of skills. The last time I got into trouble was in my second year of high school when a senior made Anne-Marie upset. I was really angry when I saw her crying in the school parking lot. Thankfully, I didn't confront him at school. It could have led to big problems for me. My dad grounded me for a whole month. I considered myself lucky when his parents chose not to pursue any action against me. Years later, I learned that Miguel Santos helped a lot with that. He talked to the boy's father and persuaded him that dropping the issue was the best choice for everyone. It wouldn't help anyone if I got into serious trouble or if his son faced consequences. Another reason I decided not to react was for my own peace of mind. I had been feeling overwhelmed for weeks. I had trouble sleeping and was close to losing my job. Most importantly, I felt really alone and didn't have anyone to talk to. My mother passed away from breast cancer during my last year of college, just before I was supposed to graduate. My father had a hard time dealing with his sadness and started drinking, which changed him a lot. 6 months after she died, he moved to Florida, and I hadn't heard from him in almost 4 years. I wanted a fresh start and needed to leave my hometown quickly. To do this, I needed money. The little I had also belonged to Anne-Marie, so it was important for her to support my choice to get a divorce and begin again. I was only 25 and had a plan. If things turned around for me, I might find some peace. Getting back at anyone was the last thing I was thinking about. 2 weeks after I spoke with Anne-Marie, we found ourselves in our lawyer's office. Anne-Marie decided to give up the house, which would be put on the market. We agreed to split our checking and savings accounts, and I would keep my small retirement savings. She would keep the newer car and the payments for it. I decided to stick with my old truck, which was 10 years old. That was my final choice. It was all set, except for the 90-day waiting period. The next thing I did was the only choice I regretted during the divorce. I wasn't honest with Anne-Marie. "Where will you stay, Gavin?" she asked. "I found a small apartment close to work. I'll be there until I decide what to do next." "Okay. I guess we'll see each other when the house sells. At least during the closing, right?" "Of course. See you soon, Annie." Our lawyer had my power of attorney for the closing. My truck was packed with my clothes and laptop. I left my wedding ring on the kitchen counter of our old home, along with my last note to Anne-Marie. It simply said, "Goodbye, I'll always love you. Be happy." As I drove out of town, I stopped to say goodbye to Miguel Santos. For many years, he was more than just a regular father-in-law to me. "Mijo, you and Anne-Marie are meant to be together. Anyone can see it. You both shouldn't talk about the past. Can't there be forgiveness? Don't forget your promises to God and your family. This is a lot to handle and too soon." "Sir, I have found it in my heart to forgive. I love your daughter and only want the best for her. Now I need to find peace." Maria Santos hugged me at the door. I felt like she understood more than she said. When she finally let go, she gently touched my cheek, closed her eyes, and stood still for a moment. Then, in a soft voice just for me, she said, "God bless you, mijo. I will miss you." I had to go before my feelings got too strong. When your partner is angry with you, it's important to understand why. I felt lost. Sometimes, small things bothered us, like remembering to put the toilet seat down, picking up my socks, or loading the dishes into the washer. But we hadn't had any real arguments in months. I started to think she might be feeling stressed from work. They had been working longer hours. When I asked her about it, she said she was trying hard, but everything would be fine. So, I figured I should try to help without causing more problems. I took on more chores around the house. I cooked dinner more often and washed the dishes right away. I did the laundry, folded towels and sheets, dusted the furniture, and cleaned the windows. I wanted to do things she would notice, hoping it would brighten her mood. After a few weeks, I finally decided to face my least favorite job, cleaning the bathroom. If I hadn't decided to do that, I might not have found out what I did for a long time. I wouldn't have taken out the bathroom trash if I hadn't seen the box for the pregnancy test. That made me curious, so I looked through the garbage and found the positive test. Then I went to the medicine cabinet and noticed the unopened birth control pills. This made me think, and I reached a hard conclusion. We hadn't been close for at least 7 weeks. It had been almost 2 months of reasons like not feeling well, being too tired, or too stressed. This was the longest we had gone without being together, but I hadn't worried much about it. I knew something was off, though I hoped I was wrong. It seemed like someone else had been with my wife. But who? I didn't wait long for an answer. I called Anne-Marie, ready to ask her a hard question. When I dialed, her line went to the front desk. I asked to speak to Anne-Marie, but they told me she had already left for the day. I decided not to leave a message. When I got to her office about 20 minutes later, her car was still in the parking lot. My faint hope that she might have been in trouble and someone was trying to get in touch with me quickly faded. After about 30 minutes, I had answers to my questions. Her boss, Michael James, parked next to Anne-Marie's car. She got out of the passenger side and walked over to him. I noticed her smile when they shared a moment, and they looked relaxed together. That small moment told me everything I needed to know. I got home just a few minutes before she did. It was easy enough to hide my feelings that night because she hardly looked my way. It took me a little over 2 hours to realize that my marriage was finished, and why. The drive to Las Vegas was 20 hours long, but I completed it in 4 days. On the first day, I traveled through Nebraska and into Colorado. I took my time driving through the beautiful mountains of Colorado and Utah, enjoying the calm I felt as I crossed a major divide. At first, I worried about my truck's engine, but by the end of the trip, my concerns changed to the brakes. On the fourth day, I rested my head on a firm mattress in a hotel just off the main road. I ended up sleeping for 18 hours straight. It didn't take me long to register, buy my books, and fill out the forms for my housing. Just a week before, I had been a 25-year-old man who had recently divorced and had no family to turn to. Now, I was a first-year law student living in a small dorm room with a kitchen and bathroom shared with others. I was beginning a new phase in my life. I wish I could tell stories about my new experiences with dating after returning to college. The truth is, I didn't have much experience there. It had always been Gavin and Anne-Marie together. I didn't even know how to start. I can honestly say that I didn't go on any dates while I was in law school, and I didn't have close friends. If any girl showed me even a little interest, I didn't notice. Instead, I used my time at school to escape from everyday life and focused all my energy on my studies. I spent the next 4 years working towards my JD MBA, which seemed like a smart plan. I had kept a perfect 4.0 in my undergraduate studies. Anne-Marie and I had talked about me going back to school once we were more financially secure. When I felt ready to move forward in life, studying for the LSAT and filling out applications became my main goals. I chose Las Vegas because they were the first school to accept me with a full scholarship and grant offer. I didn't know much about the school or the city, but they offered the program I wanted, and it was far from my hometown. About once a month, I emailed Mr. and Mrs. Santos would share news about my studies and my life as a graduate student. I picked up this habit from my parents during my time in college. Maybe it was the routine, or maybe I wanted someone to notice what I was doing. 13 weeks into my first semester, a package arrived for me. I saw the total amount listed. My hard work and effort were worth $7,642. 18 after fees and expenses. It felt like one of the saddest days of my life. Every few weeks, I would get an email from Miguel or Maria Santos. I never told them where I was, and they never asked. They would update me about one of their other 7 children, but there were never any direct messages about Anne-Marie. This made me feel like I had a family who cared about me. I wasn't sure if it was good for me, but it made me feel less alone, so I kept talking with them. For the first 6 or 7 months, there were always hints about important things like forgiveness and taking responsibility, but nothing too straightforward. They never said it outright, but they often shared stories that gave me hope. Then, all of a sudden, those hints disappeared. I was convinced that Anne-Marie would decide to keep her baby, but I worried if she would tell her parents the truth before the baby came, and there was no way to hide it anymore. I also wondered if Michael James would leave his wife and 3 other kids to be there for Anne-Marie. I found myself thinking about it, but I didn't have the courage to ask. I realized it was unlikely that a baby from someone with a different background would look like me or have my features. I felt a bit scared when I sent flowers, balloons, and a gift basket to the James house, congratulating Mr. James. James and Anne-Marie welcomed their new baby. I also sent a second set of congratulations to Anne-Marie at her office, going through the company president. I promised myself not to lower my standards by trying to hurt anyone, including Michael James. Still, the sadness I felt was very real. I needed to do something. I hadn't spread any harmful rumors, I just wanted to share my good wishes. Honestly, I was happy for Anne-Marie. She had always loved children. We often talked about having a big family with lots of kids and maybe even grandkids someday. She was chasing her dreams, and I was truly glad for her. I couldn't overlook that her joy seemed to bring me pain. Not knowing what happened after I sent my gifts made me think about what could go wrong for Michael James, even if those thoughts were unlikely. Thankfully, that small gesture helped me start to move forward from that chapter of my life. It still hurt a lot, but it was over and couldn't be changed. Sadly, it didn't make my social life any better. I didn't have a friend like that, and it would take a long time before I did. I met my first real friend at work after my divorce. He was 20 years older than me. The small law firm I joined handled real estate deals. The starting pay was more than I had expected, but it was fair. I was skilled with contracts, had a good sense for numbers, and soon found out that I was also good with people. "Gavin, people need to trust you to help them with their problems," he told me. "They are counting on you to help them succeed. You have a special skill, and I am going to help you grow it. David Rothschild was the head partner who looked over my work. He did much more than that. He became my teacher, my mentor, and my guide in life. Rothschild was well respected in the legal world. He had managed important real estate projects and was an excellent negotiator. He was liked by many and respected by community leaders, business people, and the entertainment industry. Everything he touched seemed to do well. He simply did not accept failure. Luckily for me, he chose me as his next project. I will always remember his first review of my work, just 90 days into my legal career. Gavin, as a lawyer, you are dedicated, hard-working, and pay attention to details. You are creative and have a strong grasp of the law. You have been doing great work. I smiled for a moment at the nice words. Thank you, Mr. Rothschild. As a person, you have some things to think about. Are you 30 or 90? What's up with you? Don't tell me now, we're going out. That's how I ended up sitting with David Rothschild, a well-known figure in real estate in Las Vegas, for what would become our weekly meeting about Project Gavin. By the time our first meeting ended, I could see why he was so good at his job. He asked me a few questions and let me talk. Sometimes he would ask me more questions, share a short story, or tell a light joke, and then he would listen again. I felt comfortable and shared a lot. I talked about my childhood, my parents, law school, and especially about Anne-Marie. I said things I had never shared before, and it felt easy to do so. He wrapped up our talk the way he always did. Well, we have a lot to work on. Luckily, we have plenty of resources to use. Let's go back to the office. We have work to do. I wasn't sure what he really wanted because we never talked about it. At first, I didn't understand his style, but after 3 years, the results were clear. His ways were so subtle that I often didn't notice what he was doing until it was done. He would suggest an idea, and I would see it grow. He would often talk about a picture, article, movie, TV show, or book, and something about it would inspire me. I started changing my style, going to the gym, learning to cook, making smarter choices with my money, and even buying my own place. Without his help, I would have lived a nice life, but with his support, I became a confident, successful young entrepreneur. I made good choices, met the right people, and took part in helpful opportunities. I always found it hard to show my thanks, but he liked to stay out of the limelight. Even though his father taught him how to play, it's Tiger who makes the shots and wins the tournaments, Gavin. The only thanks I need comes from seeing you succeed. After nearly 5 years of working for Rothschild, he started to care more about my personal life, and most importantly, my well-being. One day, he surprised me by coming to my office and sitting in one of my guest chairs. Gavin, what are you getting your parents for their anniversary? I was surprised by the question. How could he forget that my mother had passed away years ago? I was certain he knew my father had died from liver failure the year before. He was the one who let me take time off to go to Florida for the funeral. When I looked at him, he seemed to find my confusion amusing. Come on, Gavin. Miguel and Maria Santos will celebrate 50 years of marriage next month. You must have thought of a nice gift. It would be unkind not to acknowledge such a special occasion. With that, he walked away, looking pleased with himself. He was right. The Santoses felt like family to me. I sent them messages at least once a month and began calling them on their birthdays during my second year of law school. Sometimes I sent gifts or cards for holidays, like flowers on Mother's Day. After about a year, I stopped keeping my address to myself and could always expect a lovely birthday card and a care package from Maria at Christmas. 50 years of marriage is a big deal and deserves something special. So I planned a celebration for them. First-class plane tickets, 5-star hotel stays, a fancy car service, and dinner reservations at the best restaurants in Las Vegas, along with tickets to popular shows. I took care of all the costs and sent everything quickly with a note that said, "To celebrate a great example of true commitment, happy anniversary, enjoy your gift, with love, Gavin." I didn't expect anything back, so I was surprised when I got a call the next day around noon. Gavin O'Connor. Oh, my dear, what a lovely surprise. But this is too much. Mrs. Santos, it's so nice to hear from you. You and your husband truly deserve this gift, and I was happy to give it to you. Oh, Gavin, you've always been so kind. Just a moment. Miguel wants to talk to you. Gavin? Yes, sir. Gavin, this is too generous. I can't accept this. I can't imagine how much it costs. It's too much. He kept talking, and I wondered how he was speaking without stopping. "Mr. Santos? Miguel? Dad?" "Yes, Gavin. My gift doesn't even come close to showing you the kindness you've given me over the years. I'm really happy to share this with you, so please take it as a sign of my thanks." After a short pause, he answered, "Yes, my son, we accept." "Great. Happy anniversary." Then we had a nice talk that any travel planner would love. I told them about all the fun things I thought they would like on their trip. After a lot of thank yous and kind words, I hung up the phone and felt a lot better. I realized it was the first nice thing I had done for someone in nearly 10 years. While I was thinking about that, I saw Rothschild standing in my doorway with his usual big smile. "Ungrateful kids," he said quietly. "Be quiet, old man," I told him. The Santos family's trip turned out to be quite different from what I expected. I thought they would enjoy my gift by visiting interesting places, eating at nice restaurants, and relaxing at the hotel and spa. They did some of those things, but they really wanted me to join them. What mattered most was being together. From the moment they arrived at the resort, they made it clear they wanted me around. Just a few minutes after they checked into their room, my phone rang. "Gavin O'Connor. Mijo, when will you come see us?" "Hello, Mrs. Santos. How was your flight?" "It was good. Miguel says we should rest a bit, but we'll be ready to go soon." "When will you come?" "Well, I think I can be there in about an hour." "Oh, that's great. See you then." I hadn't really planned to visit the Santos family while they were here. They had plenty to keep them busy, and I had a lot of work waiting for me. I was trying to figure out how to change my plans when Rothschild entered my office with 2 assistants. "Gavin, I've scheduled some time off for you. You need a break. Now please leave and don't come back for a week, or there will be consequences." The paralegals quickly gathered my things and left my desk neat and empty. "Gavin, spend some time with your parents. I'll take care of everything else." So that's what I did. I did break one small rule, though. The Santos family wanted to visit my office. Rothschild usually took work matters seriously, but when we walked into the office, it seemed like he was happy to see us. He took the Santos family on a tour, introducing them to everyone as my parents. In the conference room, he had coffee and snacks ready for us. He spent almost an hour sharing stories about my job, talking about my successes, and treating the Santos family like valued guests. It truly brought me joy to see the pride on the Santos family's faces as he spoke about me. Maria stayed close, giving my hand a gentle squeeze each time someone said something nice. "We are so proud of you, mijo." The rest of the week went on in a similar way. I could see Rothschild's good influence everywhere we went. I had picked the fancy car service, the hotel, the places to eat, and the shows for the Santos's trip based on the connections I had made over the years. I'd used a few favors to help out. It wasn't a big problem, but Rothschild definitely went above and beyond. No matter where we went, we got excellent service. We were greeted by owners instead of just staff. They told us how I had helped them and gave us the best seats, the finest drinks, and anything else they could provide. It was quite amazing. Mr. and Mrs. Santos, I must say this week has been quite special. Although I know and work with all these people, I've never had service this great before. I usually live a much simpler life. Gavin, we think it's wonderful that you have so many friends who want to show us how much they appreciate you. We've always known you were a special young man, and it has always made us proud to call you. Maria Santos couldn't finish her sentence, but Miguel helped her out. Our son. That is who you are and who you will always be. You promised before God to join our family. You have kept that promise in every way. You have been a steady part of our lives since you were little, and it has been a joy to watch you grow into a great man. A father couldn't ask for more. Gavin, we love you and are very proud of you. Miguel Santos may have been 10 years older, but he was still very strong. It felt like he might squeeze the air from me with his big hug. A moment later, Maria Santos joined our warm embrace, creating one of my best family moments in a long time. It filled my heart with joy. Their visit went by quickly, and I was sad to see them go. I promised to visit them soon, but I had some things to take care of first. Once again, Rothschild understood exactly what I needed. I went back to work feeling refreshed and focused. When I shared my idea with him, he smiled and encouraged me. Even though this project was small and wouldn't bring in money for the long term, it felt like the most important project I had ever done. In just 6 weeks, I managed to get all the property rights I needed, except for one. I already had a buyer ready with full funding. I made a few calls, 7 to be exact, to people who weren't expecting to hear from me. With new plans to talk to the last property owner, I felt ready and booked a flight to my hometown. This would be my first visit in nearly 10 years. While I waited at the airport for my flight to board, I met Amy and Lydia for the first time. They were working at a coffee shop kiosk in one of the terminals. I hesitated to listen in, but they were talking quite openly. Everyone in line for coffee could tell they were having a tough time. Their apartments had problems with broken appliances and plumbing, and their landlord was not willing to fix anything. He also told them that if they broke their lease, they would lose their security deposit, leaving them without the money they needed to move on. When Amy handed me my coffee, I gave her a card with some notes on the back. "I couldn't help but overhear your conversation. I think I can help you if you want. That's my business card. Please call the number on it and ask for Marcus. Say that Gavin, that's me, suggested you ask for a Melvin. It's important to say Melvin. He will need some information about you and your landlord. After that, he will handle everything. If you also need help finding a new place, just let Marcus know. He will help you find a good place within your budget." I wrote everything on the back of the card. That's when they announced my flight was boarding. "That's my flight. I have to go. Don't worry about the cost. I'll take care of it. Just use the number. Marcus, Gavin, Melvin, good luck." Why did I offer to help them? It's simple. I've met my share of tough people in real estate. It was Rothschild who taught me the important lesson about working in this field. Gavin, real estate isn't just about winning or losing. There don't have to be any losers. In the best deals, everyone wins. Our clients get a good investment at the right price. Tenants find quality places, and everyone makes money. We are here to support others, not to take advantage of them. We are connectors, not opportunists. With a few phone calls and a letter and maybe 30 minutes of work, one of our paralegals would help the 2 girls out of a tough situation. We sometimes did volunteer work, and this was one of those times. Before turning off my phone, I quickly emailed Marcus. I wanted him to be ready for the call and manage his time well. The flight to Omaha was short. I quickly got my rental car and my luggage. As I drove around a bit, I saw that not much had changed. The main landmarks were still there, but there were new buildings too. It felt different, not quite like home anymore. I drove through the Santos' neighborhood. Most of the houses looked old and worn down, except for theirs. It had never been the best area, but now it felt even more forgotten. One big change was the new condominium development where I was headed. It was a unique design for the area with several floors of apartments built above shops, restaurants, a movie theater, and even a grocery store. The property was next to a big park with lots of walking paths, which made it a great place to live. The condo I stayed in was a brand new 2-bedroom unit. It had a large living room, dining area, and kitchen, as well as a separate den. There was a nice balcony that looked out over the park and offered a beautiful view of the city skyline. The master bedroom and bathroom felt very nice, with a deep tub and a spacious shower. The space was well furnished, with good quality items and modern appliances. With a few personal touches, it would feel warm and inviting. I was excited to meet the Santos family for dinner at a local restaurant. They arrived right on time. Dressed for a fun evening, we enjoyed a lovely meal filled with laughter. I hoped the rest of the night would be just as nice. Miguel and Maria Santos were nearing 67 years old and had just celebrated 50 happy years of marriage. I understood what people were thinking. I had thought about it too. They had built a life together long ago. They were both young at heart and generally healthy, but the years of hard work had worn Miguel down. Maria was working as an office manager to save for retirement. During one of our talks in Las Vegas, I found out that even though they were ready to retire, they were worried about whether they could afford it. They were also concerned about living in a neighborhood with crime and vacant homes. I wanted to help change that. As Rothschild had pointed out, it was something children do for their parents. I asked them to join me back at the condo for a drink. They looked surprised when we got into the elevator. "I didn't even know this was a hotel," Miguel said. "The rooms must cost a lot." "Yeah, well, we need to talk about that," I replied. When I opened the door to the condo, they both looked around and admired the space. It was really touching to see how much they enjoyed it. I had asked 7 of their children to share what they thought about the Santos's new house. Most of their answers were alike, with a few details that stood out. I felt sure I had covered everything important. The special drink caught their eye. "Are we having a party?" one of them asked. "Yes, I hope so," I replied. "What's the reason to celebrate?" they wanted to know. I opened the bottle with a soft pop. "Your retirement and new home," I said, lifting my glass and motioning around the room. "Oh my goodness, this is a surprise? We can't accept something this kind," came the response. "Miguel is right, my friend, we can't possibly take this," another child added. "Oh, it's not a gift, but you will have plenty to enjoy your new chapter. Please take a seat so we can talk about this." At first, they looked unsure, but the overall feeling in the room was good. "When we sign these papers, we will start a partnership called Santos Investment Group. Our first job is to complete the purchase of the 19 properties around your home. Next, we will package those properties with your home, ask for a zoning change from the planning office, and sell everything to Property Management International. They want to build a hotel, stores, and parking near the new arena. We hope to finish this sale in the next 90 days. I pushed a paper across the table that showed the amount of money. They looked a bit surprised. "This condo is rented as it is for the next 3 months, with a chance to buy it for this amount." Next, I gave them another paper with a different number marked. "Half of the extra money will support a lifetime payment plan for both of you, giving you this amount every month." I set down a third paper on the table. "This means you can enjoy a worry-free retirement, which you truly deserve, in your new home. I'm providing you with good business advice and some legal support. The Santos family wouldn't be rich, but they wouldn't have to work again. It felt like a safety net, and that was more than enough for them." "Gavin, how did you arrange all this so quickly?" "Well, buying the properties around yours took some effort, but it wasn't too difficult. Mr. Rothschild found a buyer through his contacts. There's a new gaming center planned across the river in Iowa. Once we understood how much the property was worth and what it could be used for, it became easier to talk about the price. Our buyer has good contacts in the city council, which will help us change the zoning, and the rest is just smart investing." Maria Santos had tears in her eyes, but she was smiling. Miguel shook his head in disbelief. "I can't believe it. It's a miracle. This is more than we ever dreamed of." "Well, nobody deserves it more than you two. I hadn't heard from Anne-Marie in 10 years. Her parents never mentioned her, and even when I spoke to her siblings, they didn't bring her up either. I really hadn't thought about her at all, but seeing her again felt like waking up from a dream. I had cared for her a lot when we were younger, but now I felt nothing. Running into her was completely unexpected. I hadn't packed very well. I chose my favorite clothes instead of thinking about what to wear. I needed to buy a few things to feel comfortable during my trip. Thankfully, a new shopping center had opened, and it had one of my favorite stores that wasn't there before. I had been shopping for a bit when I heard someone say, "You have great taste." It was Anne-Marie. She looked a lot like I remembered. She was a little older, her smile not as bright, and she had gained a bit of weight. It wasn't too much, just an older version of the woman I once knew. "Hi, Anne-Marie. What brings you here?" she asked. "I'm just shopping. How about you?" "Oh, I work here. I meant, why are you in town?" "I'm just finishing some work and seeing some old friends." "Oh, was I one of the friends you wanted to see?" "To be honest, no." "Oh, okay. It was nice to see you, Gavin." "You too, Anne-Marie. I thought that would be the end of our conversation. It felt a bit awkward, but not too much. I figured it had gone better than I expected since I didn't plan to see her again. I didn't stay calm for long when I noticed she was at the register. After finishing the sale, she spoke to me again. "Gavin, how long are you staying here? A few days, maybe? Could we meet and chat for a bit? I'll think about it." She gave me her card, and I left without saying anything else. I felt unsure about what to say to her. I had really moved on and almost didn't make the call. 2 nights later, despite my thoughts, I found myself alone in a booth at one of my favorite bars. Anne-Marie and I used to come here with friends after work on Fridays. It felt familiar, but different now. She had obviously put in a lot of effort. Her little black dress looked nice on her, and her choice of shoes drew attention. She also seemed to have spent time on her hair and nails. If she had been a stranger, I might have thought about asking her for a drink. She looked good. I didn't stand up as she slid into the booth across from me. After a moment of quiet, she finally spoke. "You lied to me. You lied to me first." I knew what she meant, and she understood me too. She seemed a bit uneasy before she went on. "I didn't think you would actually leave town. I hoped we could talk things out. What would that do? I'm not sure, but I felt sad when you left. Well, you didn't really give me a choice, so I don't feel sorry for how you feel." She looked a little taken aback by my words. I wasn't trying to be harsh, just honest. "Gavin, I never stopped caring about you, even when I made my decisions." I sighed at that. I wondered if this was the path she wanted to follow. "Anne-Marie, the one good thing about our time apart is that you were always truthful with me. Maybe because I never gave you a reason to be otherwise, but I can't stick around if you're going to be dishonest now. What do you want? Why are we here? Nothing will change. What happened between us is in the past. But you never tried to save our relationship. You just walked away without talking about it. It really surprised me. Why would you leave without giving it a chance? I thought you loved me." "Well, I guess we see things differently. To me, it felt like you gave up on us without saying goodbye. You didn't even let me try to make things better. I just wrote down how I felt. I made a mistake, Gavin, I really did, and I'm really sorry. Is that enough?" I couldn't help but feel upset. Being apart had helped me see things more clearly, while Anne-Marie seemed lost in her own thoughts. "That doesn't make sense." She looked hurt, and her eyes filled with tears, but what she said felt off to me. "Just because things didn't go the way you wanted doesn't mean you can change what happened. Please don't act like you really cared about me." "I did care, Gavin. I loved you. I still care about you." "Do you really mean that?" "I do, Gavin." "Okay, let's think this through. Was it you or Michael James who decided I should be away from my wife?" She looked at me, and for a moment, I saw a hint of regret in her eyes, but mostly she seemed unsure, like she wished she hadn't started this conversation. It was his choice. "So your so-called love for me let you be with another man and follow his plans even if it hurt me?" "Gavin, How long did you wait before you stopped taking your pills?" "What?" "Well, This wasn't an accident. You chose this. When were you going to tell me? Or were you going to pretend it was mine, knowing we weren't close?" She didn't try to answer. "Why aren't you with him? Where is he now?" "He didn't want me. His wife found out about the baby and so did his boss. His wife divorced him and he had to leave his job to keep from being let go. He left me too, and I ended up quitting my job as well. It was too hard to stay there with everyone knowing what had happened. And I should feel bad about that. Why?" "I don't know, Gavin. I really don't. I made a mistake and got stuck in a tough spot that I couldn't get out of. I know I was wrong. Can't you forgive me? I love you. I felt lost the day you left, and I've missed you since then. I hoped you would come back and give me another chance. I wanted to say sorry and promise I would never do that again. I'm very alone, Gavin. My parents hardly talk to me. My siblings don't want me around. I don't have any friends. I am all alone. Anne-Marie, I forgave you a long time ago, but there is no way I can go back to what we had. Well, you still have your other child. It can keep you company at night." "That's a tough thing to say, Gavin." "Not as tough as what you've said to me." "I'm not lying, Gavin. I want another chance. I've dreamed about it for years." "That's not going to happen." "Why not? I know you care about me. You said you would always care about me. I've always cared about you. Why can't we make this work?" 2 reasons. First, I'm not the same person you married. I've changed a lot. You don't really know me anymore, and I certainly don't know you. You do know me, Gavin. I'm still the same person you loved back then, so your first reason doesn't hold. What's the second reason? You know, Anne-Marie, that's the first thing you've said that I truly believe. Now, let me explain my second reason. You made a choice to be with someone else. I let that happen without saying anything harsh because I cared about you. I might still care in my way. Since the day I left, I have gone to law school, passed my exams, started a new job, and created a new life. But there is one thing I haven't done. I haven't been with anyone else since we last met. So let me ask you this. How many different guys have you been with while thinking about me and what we had? Anne-Marie couldn't meet my eyes. I knew you were being honest with me, Anne-Marie. At that time, I didn't know that you hadn't been truthful. How can I trust you again? Why should I want to? Give me one good reason to let you back into my life that isn't just for your sake. If you can do that, maybe we have a chance. She cried quietly as I stood up to leave. That's what I thought. Goodbye, Anne-Marie. 3 months later, I saw them again. I was on my way back to Omaha for some business. Everything had gone as planned. Miguel and Maria were happy in their new home, and it made me feel good to see them doing well. This time, the ladies were cheerful, laughing as they helped the customers. I was focused on my phone when I heard someone call out my name. Mr. O'Connor. Yes? How can I help you? At first, I didn't recognize them. I had never really met them, and I didn't know their names. Then it hit me. Oh, yes, you're from Melvin. I'm sorry for not connecting the dots. How have you been? Everything is great, Mr. O'Connor. We wanted to thank you, but we didn't know how to express it. Please, just call me Gavin. There's no need for thanks. I just wanted to help. I'm really glad to hear you're doing well. I took a moment to look at the two young women. Only one was speaking. She was a friendly brunette with a lovely smile and curly hair that rested on her shoulders. She was about 5'7" inches tall and had a nice, healthy body. Her friend seemed a bit shy. She was a little taller and thinner with long, straight blonde hair. Even though she was small, she looked healthy, and a little smile showed she was not scared. Again, they announced it was time for me to get on my plane. Well, ladies, that's my flight again. It was nice to see you. I'm sorry I don't know your names. I'm Amy, and this is Lydia. We're cousins. Well, Amy and Lydia, it was great to see you. As I stood in line to show my ticket to the agent, Amy rushed over to me. She gave me a napkin from their coffee shop with a phone number on it. We really want to thank you. Call me when you're back. Since I was next to board, I didn't have much time to think. I usually might have said no politely if I had more time. Sure, that's fine. Our family got together for big holidays. We always met for Easter, Thanksgiving, Christmas, the 4th of July, and Cinco de Mayo to celebrate. It felt a bit strange to ask everyone to come in September, but that's what I decided to do. I was surprised everyone fit in the Santos' new condo. There wasn't a lot of space for people to sleep, but it turned out to be a nice place to gather. Everyone was sitting and looking at me. I knew this was going to be one of the hardest things I'd ever done. They might think it wasn't my place to speak up. I wasn't sure. But it felt like the right thing to do. So, as Rothschild always said, I was trusting my instincts. I wanted everyone here so I could say this once, and you could all hear it together. First, I want to say that being treated as a true member of this family has brought me so much happiness. Miguel and Maria, your love and support have helped me get through some really tough times. I will always appreciate that. I also remember Anne-Marie as part of our family. She shared in our happy moments and our sad ones. Sadly, some choices she made hurt me, and I had to make some difficult decisions because of that. Still, she never turned against any of you. I spoke with her for the first time in almost 10 years just a few months ago. That was one of the hardest talks I've ever had, and I shared how I felt about what happened between us. Even though I will always be upset with her for her choices, it was what she told me about all of you that made me feel bad. So I say this with respect to all of you. Mr. and Mrs. Santos, I apologize for leaving so suddenly, but I need to say this. You all need to stop being unkind and stop leaving out your daughter and sister along with her child. Until she is welcomed back into this family where she has always belonged, I don't want to be involved with any of you. Mr. and Mrs. Santos, I will not be reaching out to you, and you should not contact me until this situation is sorted out. The surprised looks on their faces didn't bring me much joy, but I left my adopted family with little hope of seeing them again. The next year was busy and confusing both at work and in my personal life. At the office, we were working very hard. After almost 8 weeks of long hours and many tasks, Rothschild had enough. One evening in the meeting room, he spoke to all of us. That's enough. I can't have any of you here right now. From this moment, we're taking a break. Everyone needs to leave for a week. I will pay you for your time, but I can't stand to see any of you right now. With that, he left. I spent my first day off cleaning my condo. I had forgotten about some of the furniture under all the papers, clothes, and takeout containers. While I was sorting my laundry into clean and dirty piles, I emptied my pockets and found the napkin with the number on it. On the morning of my third day at home, with a tidy apartment and fresh clothes, the napkin lay on my dining table like a small piece of art. I decided it was time to call. I felt a bit silly. Hello. Can I speak to Amy, please? This is she. Oh, hi, Amy. This is Gavin O'Connor. I met you at the airport. You gave me your number there a few weeks ago and asked me to call. I was sure my face was very warm on the other end of the line. Hi, Gavin. Of course I remember you, she said with a smile. How could I forget? Well, I know this is last minute and you might have plans, but I was hoping you and Lydia could join me for dinner tonight. I'd love to cook for you at my apartment and hear how everything is going with your new place. I've been a bit bored since we had to move out of the office for the week. I really hope you can come. She giggled, and I felt a little shy. Gavin, we would love to come over for dinner. Tonight works perfectly for us. That's great. I'm so happy to hear that. Gavin? Yes? Could you give me your address? Oh, of course. Here it is. I felt a bit flustered, realizing I was inviting people over for dinner. Talking to Amy and Lydia in person made me feel much more comfortable, even though Lydia was still a bit quiet. She was looking at me and smiling, which was enough to make me feel at ease. This is a lovely condo, Gavin. You must like having friends over. My condo was quite nice, though I couldn't take much credit for it. It was part of a new building project. Rothschild and I helped set up the funding for the developer. This 3-bedroom penthouse condo was a great deal, so I quickly decided to buy it. I had a lovely view of the city, and it was a nice place to unwind, even though I hadn't used it much. I liked the condo so much that I thought about putting in a bit more money. But I didn't want to say that I also owned the entire building. Actually, besides my boss, you're the first guests I've had here. Really? What about your girlfriend? Oh, I don't have a girlfriend. I haven't even been on a date since my divorce, and that was 10 years ago. Amy and Lydia were sitting on tall chairs at the kitchen island, sipping some wine. Amy kept asking me questions, and it was nice to talk to someone other than my boss and colleagues. I was making pasta and getting a sauce ready while chatting casually. I didn't realize how much I was sharing. I just felt comfortable with them in a way I couldn't really explain. Then the conversation stopped. When I looked up, they were both looking at me, surprised. What? Did I say something wrong? I'm sorry, what did I say? You haven't been on a date in 10 years, Gavin? Well, no, I haven't. I was busy with school and work, so it just didn't happen. Is that strange? Yeah. Even Lydia nodded in agreement. Oh, well, I guess I never really thought about it. That is a bit unusual. I just can't understand it, Gavin. Believe it or not, it's true. Dinner is ready now. Let's go to the table. Dinner was fun. Laughter and smiles surrounded us. I learned more about Amy and Lydia. Amy was in her last year of college studying hospitality management, while Lydia was focusing on English with a minor in creative writing. I asked Lydia if I could see some of her work. Amy said maybe. They shared a look that confused me. Both were 22 and had lived together since they were 16, after Lydia's parents sadly passed away in a car accident. Staying together in college felt right for them. Amy told me that Lydia liked me and would get to know me better over time. I decided to believe her. There was a special feeling in the room all night. It might have been the wine or maybe my awkwardness, but it seemed like the two young women were being kind to me. I tried to push that thought away, but I didn't mind too much. Honestly, I liked the attention, even if it was mostly in my head. At the end of the night, I got a warm hug and a kiss on the cheek from both of them. They left with Amy saying we should meet again soon. I jokingly said I was free for the week and that they could come over any time. I was really surprised when they showed up the next day before lunch, bringing a picnic basket full of food. We had lunch on the balcony and enjoyed the nice weather before it got too hot. After that, they both went off to work. It seemed they were happy I had invited them. The next evening, after their classes ended, they came back with pizza, popcorn, and a movie. They sat together on the couch while I relaxed in my favorite chair. Amy seemed a little nervous about asking to use the pool the next day. She wasn't sure if the building would let guests in. I smiled and told her I would take care of it. When they came the next day, I had a nice surprise for them. I had gotten special keys for the pool and gym for both of them, along with a locker in the ladies' area. Sometimes it felt good to be in charge. They also had a surprise for me. When they came out of the bedroom ready for a swim, I realized I needed to work harder at the gym. After my week away, we got back into a routine. I would go to work and then come home. 3 or 4 days a week, the girls would come over for dinner, a movie, or just to talk. We usually found something fun to do together on the weekends. The girls also came by almost every day to use the exercise room, even though I was often at work. Rothschild was enjoying all his new material to joke about. If I didn't know you so well, I'd think you were dating 2 women at once. Enough already, old man. We are just friends. Please keep your wild ideas to yourself. About 4 months into our friendship, I sensed something was off. We were having a quiet dinner one Friday night at my place, but the girls seemed unusually silent. As dinner ended, I could feel the tension rising. Ladies, is something bothering you? No, not really, Gavin. Lydia had a question for me, but she wasn't sure how to say it. Amy, you know you can ask me anything. I'm always here for you two, I said. Just ask whatever you want, but please don't take my answer the wrong way, I added. Okay. Why haven't you tried to get closer to us? Do you think we're not attractive? Lydia asked. I was a bit taken aback by her question. It took me a moment to gather my thoughts. Well, that's a tough question. I think both of you are really great and lovely, but I haven't tried to get closer for 2 reasons. First, I don't want to risk our friendship or make you feel uncomfortable like I'm just someone around for attention. And second, I'm not really sure how to make that happen. I've never had the chance to really try. Amy and Lydia exchanged looks for a moment. Then Lydia smiled and nodded. Amy took a deep breath and sighed softly. Gavin, Lydia and I want you to know that we really enjoy being with you. I'm really happy to hear that, I said, trying to understand what they meant. Lydia nodded, looking hopeful. We want to share something special together, not just with anyone else, but with you. I felt surprised and curious about their idea. So you're saying you want us all to be together? Amy smiled kindly. Yes, we believe something special could happen between us. I needed a moment to think about it. That's a big step to think about. I appreciate your honesty. Lydia leaned in a bit closer. It's important to us that you're okay with this. We just wanted to be clear about what we're looking for. I nodded, seeing how sincere they were. I understand. Thank you for sharing this with me. Lydia asked me to take some time this evening to read her writing. She thinks, and I agree, that it will help you see what she wants to say. Then, we'd like to come back tomorrow to talk about what this means for all of us. Can you do that? I think I can, but I'm a little confused. You just want me to read her stories? Yes, Gavin. Then tomorrow we'd like to chat about them and about us. Okay, I can do that. At this moment, I realize that some of you might not understand me well. I have strong opinions about what is right and wrong, and these beliefs guide what I do. I also think it's important to treat people kindly, especially friends and family. I try to be nice to strangers and others I see often, too. I'm not so set in my ways that I think everyone feels the same way I do. That's why I try to let others live their lives as they choose. As long as no one is hurting anyone else, I really don't mind how they decide to live. If someone wants a big family with many pets, that's totally fine with me, as long as they take care of them. If someone prefers to be single and enjoy their freedom, that's okay too, as long as they don't get involved with people who are already in relationships. However, I can be quite firm. Those who mistreated me in business usually regretted it. My friend Rothschild called this my Jekyll and Hyde side. He said I often gave people a good chance and treated them well. But once someone did me wrong, he joked that I could become very tough. He found this funny. I thought he was making it sound worse than it was. Still, I did have a temper. I don't think I was like this before Anne-Marie broke my heart. Until that moment, I had never felt such a deep sense of betrayal. That whole situation made me very loyal to those who earned my trust and quite upset with those who took advantage of it. You might wonder how an ordinary person could go without close relationships for 10 years. I have 2 reasons: hurt and distractions. After my divorce, I had little interest in dating. I was too caught up in the pain from my marriage ending to even think about it. Anything that reminded me, even slightly, of Anne-Marie was too much to handle. When I saw someone wearing nice clothes, I would think of her. If someone had a warm smile or a friendly way of being, I reacted the same way. Brown eyes, a kind smile, and a welcoming presence all brought back memories. It's hard to focus on anything when you feel like crying. I coped by setting those feelings aside and concentrating on my studies and work. The pain took a long time to go away. When it finally faded, my mind was filled with thoughts I didn't know how to handle. I had always thought meeting my true love at a young age was good luck, but I realized I had missed out on many experiences that might have helped me now. I had never asked anyone out on a date and didn't know how to start a conversation that could lead somewhere special. I was scared of being turned down, which kept me from trying at all. I felt sure in many parts of my life, but my past made it hard to open up to someone new. So I looked for other ways to keep myself busy and discovered some things about who I am. Anne-Marie and I got married when we were still quite young. I always valued our relationship, but we hadn't explored much beyond the surface. Having some time alone helped me think about what I really wanted. With so much information available online, I started to wonder if I wanted a bit more excitement in my life. Sometimes I felt bad about my thoughts. Over the years, 10 to be exact, I worried that I might never get the chance to try some new things I had heard about. During this time, I found Lydia's stories. They were full of imagination and set in different historical times that showed her creativity. Her writing flowed nicely, and she brought her characters to life in a way that made me feel I had known them forever. I learned a lot about Lydia through her tales. Most importantly, I discovered that she had her own surprising interests. When the girls came over around noon the next day, I was both excited and a bit anxious, hoping I wouldn't mess up these new friendships. After we got some drinks and snacks, we headed to the living room. Amy began the chat. Lydia and I aren't close in that way. All right, I'm glad to hear that. Honestly, I hadn't really thought about it before. Lydia just smiled as Amy went on. Lydia and I have always looked out for each other. We're not just cousins. We've been best friends for as long as I can remember. When we started thinking about dating, we would talk about what we liked, what we were doing, and what we wanted in our future partners. I always liked kind and caring people. Lydia preferred confident and bold guys. As we began to share our feelings and dreams, I noticed that Lydia seemed a bit shy. I started to worry about her. She had her own concerns, too. The men Lydia dated were kind to her when they were alone, but often ignored her feelings when others were around. I knew what she wanted in a relationship, and I understood why she liked those kinds of guys, but I really didn't want to see her get hurt. They sat together holding hands. Then something bad happened. One of Lydia's boyfriends became too insistent. While he didn't hurt her, he tried to get close in a way that made her uncomfortable, even though she said no. A few weeks later, Lydia found out she was going to have a baby. It was a tough time for her, and she faced many hard choices. In short, she had to make a very difficult decision for her health, but it was a complicated situation. Because of this, Lydia found out she might not be able to have kids later on. Tears filled their eyes. We always dreamed of seeing our children play together since we were little girls. We were just 19, and that dream felt like it was over before it even started. But I care for Lydia a lot, more than just a cousin or a friend. I knew she would always be a significant part of my life, so we talked and decided that our dream could still go on. I would love Lydia's children like they were my own, and I knew she would take care of mine just as much. We agreed that we would raise my kids together as co-moms. They both looked at me, maybe to see how I would feel. I wasn't sure what to say. I thought Amy was sharing one of the kindest stories I had ever heard. I always felt there was a special connection between them, and now that I understood their story, it all made sense. That's one of the saddest and kindest stories I have ever heard, I said. They both smiled softly. But we had another problem. Before we could tell anyone about our plan, we needed to find the right person, and after a while we worried we might have to give up. The guys I liked were too shy for Lydia. The guys who caught Lydia's attention were often a bit too proud for my taste. We were looking for someone special, good-looking, nice, caring, loving, and confident. And then we met you, Lydia said softly. It was the first time Lydia had ever talked to me. My heart raced. Amy continued. Without knowing us well, you helped us without wanting anything back. It was such a thoughtful thing to do, one of the nicest things anyone had done for us. Plus, you took the lead. You saw our problem, offered a way to make it better, told us what to do, and then left quietly. It was done so perfectly that we weren't sure how to talk to you without making things awkward. Then we saw you again and spent time together. We learned more about you, not just our first impression, and it has been wonderful. So we decided to open up and let you into our lives. We thought that if you found us a little unusual, it might still let us stay friends if things didn't go the way we hoped. At that moment, I didn't know what to say. I couldn't believe I was being given a chance to share my life with two interesting people. It felt overwhelming, and I wasn't sure it would really work. Okay, that's a lot to think about. I need some time. Can we take a break? I promise we will talk again this weekend. Of course, Gavin, we understand, Amy replied. They left quickly, and I felt a hint of disappointment in the air. I already knew what my answer would be, but I wanted to give them a response that matched their offer. They had thought this through carefully and were sharing something very important with me. I wanted my reply to show that I cared. I ran a few quick errands to get ready for the evening and returned to the condo around 3 o'clock. I took out my cell phone and home phone and sat at the kitchen table. I started a text message for Lydia, then I called Amy. Hello? Hi, Amy, it's Gavin. I sent the text message. Hi, Gavin. Amy, I was wondering if you would like to go out with me tonight. Maybe dinner and a drink? In the background, I could hear Lydia's phone ringing. Moments later, I heard her catch her breath in surprise. Gavin, I would love to have dinner with you this evening. Great! I can pick you up at 7 o'clock if that works for you. That sounds wonderful. Fantastic! See you soon. I hung up and waited for Lydia's response. Her invitation was quite surprising, but I hoped my request would be okay. I sent her a message. Please come to my apartment at 6:15. Don't be late. You'll be staying over, so send me a picture of what you plan to wear. 10 minutes later, I received her reply. Lydia sent me a picture from her bathroom mirror. She was wearing a cool outfit that really caught my eye. I replied simply, "Looks great." The afternoon felt full of both excitement and a bit of nervousness. I really hoped everything would go well. There was no turning back now. Lydia arrived on time, wearing a white tank top over a black one and a short tan skirt. Her black heels looked nice, but they seemed a bit bold with her outfit. Her eyes shone with happiness in a way I hadn't seen before. She had a small bag with her. I led her into the entryway and paused for a moment. I'll take your bag to the bedroom. We won't need it just yet. Please wait here. I took her bag and put it in the master bedroom. When I came back, I had something special that I had picked up earlier in the day. She stood still as I walked around her, admiring her. She was such a wonderful young woman. I really hoped that my plans for the evening would make her smile. I stepped closer to her and spoke softly. Lydia, I need to tell you that I have plans for tonight. I'm going out, but I really need you to stay here for me. Do you understand why? She slowly shook her head. I have a date tonight, and I hope it goes well. But sometimes, things don't turn out as we expect. I noticed she looked a bit uneasy when I touched her arm. Please take a seat. I want everything to be perfect when I get back. I carefully set her things on the coffee table, then stood in front of her, looking into her eyes. I let my hands move gently up her arms, feeling her warmth. I could tell she was waiting with hope as she took a deep breath. Enjoy your movie, Lydia. I'll be back by midnight. I smiled to reassure her, then left the room and walked out. I arrived at Amy's apartment with flowers in hand. When she opened the door, I was left speechless. I know every girl has a special dress for special occasions. Anne-Marie always wore hers for important events. I can honestly say I had never seen anyone look as beautiful as Amy did that night. The top she wore showed off her figure nicely. She had a small silver chain with a locket around her neck and a matching bracelet on her ankle. Her nails were painted a deep red, and her hair fell in gentle curls around her shoulders, complemented by a bright smile. I gave her the flowers, a small bunch of white lilies. Wow, you look amazing. Thank you, Gavin, for the flowers and your kind words. My evening with Amy was truly special. We enjoyed a bottle of wine and some sushi at one of her favorite restaurants. After that, we took a short drive to one of my favorite nightclubs for a drink. The round booths made a cozy spot for us to talk and laugh together. We talked about our hopes and what we wanted for the future, sharing our ideas about family and our lives together. We discussed relationships and commitment. There was a real bond between us that I could feel. Her eyes shone brightly at the end of the night. We enjoyed a pleasant evening walk in a nearby park, holding hands. For a little while, we just appreciated being together. As we stood outside her apartment, I felt the need to express my worries. "What's bothering you, Gavin?" she asked. "Why me, Amy? I'm over 10 years older than you, and I've been married before. Everyone we saw tonight seemed to notice you. You could have anyone." "Gavin, you'll understand soon. But for now, can you just believe that you're the one for me? I feel it in my heart. There's no one else." "Yes, I can believe that. Our farewell was sweet and sincere. It was a simple moment where two people showed how much they cared for one another. It ended with Amy's hands resting on my chest, her eyes meeting mine, and her bright laughter filling the hallway. "Thank you for a wonderful evening, Amy." "No, Gavin, thank you." She turned to unlock her door. After opening it just a little, she looked back at me, placing her hand gently on the back of my neck and leaning in to whisper in my ear. "Go for it, Gavin. You've got this." Then she smiled and stepped inside, leaving me standing in the hall. I didn't have strong beliefs in organized religion, but I always enjoyed the warmth and sense of community at holiday church services. I had become Catholic to marry Anne Marie in her church, and I had attended regularly during our marriage, so it felt nice to sit in my old church on Easter Sunday. I wasn't quite sure when the service would start, so I had been sitting alone at the back of the church for about 15 minutes when she came and sat beside me. "This seems like a good place to talk. Please forgive me, Gavin, for what I did wrong." "Anne Marie, I forgave you a long time ago. You know that." "I know, but you forgave me when I didn't really understand my mistakes. Now I do. I understand how much I hurt you. If I could change things, I would do anything to take back my actions. I always thought you deserved someone better than me. I'm sorry I couldn't be the person you needed. I also want to thank you for helping me reconnect with my family. My dad told me you were the reason they reached out to me. You have always been such a kind person, Gavin." "Thank you, Anne Marie. I appreciate your words and your welcome. The service was lovely. The Easter brunch was enjoyable. As the day went on, I started to understand that with Anne Marie and her daughter back where they belonged, I no longer had a place in the Santos family. It was time for me to move on. When it was time for me to say goodbye, there were many tears. We all understood what my leaving meant. In a moment that felt important, Maria Santos hugged me at the door, showing that she understood more than she said. When she finally let go, she placed her hand on my cheek, closed her eyes, and stood quietly for a moment. When she opened her eyes, she spoke softly so only I could hear. "God bless you, mijo. I will miss you." My relationship with Amy and Lydia was different from what many would call normal. For several months, the three of us fell into a special routine. We spent a lot of time together as close friends. If Amy and Lydia had lived with me all the time, we probably wouldn't have had much difference in our weekly time together. I was very happy dating Amy. Our relationship was sweet, filled with meaningful kisses and gentle touches. We often talked about getting closer, but Amy felt we would know when the right time would come. I agreed with her. It felt like we weren't ready for that next step. What surprised me was that she had no problem getting me excited, then encouraging me to spend time with Lydia for a different kind of bond. I didn't resist much. Lydia seemed very happy. Amy told me that after we first met, Lydia said I was just right for her. I guess I was good at picking up on feelings that weren't said out loud. Lydia looked to others for comfort, which made her feel safe. Amy had done that for years, and I was slowly taking on that role. But Lydia also needed someone to help her explore her feelings and limits. I was fully on board with that. She felt a sense of freedom and confidence from our friendship, which helped her creativity grow. Her poetry became prettier and her short stories more interesting. She did better in school, and I could see her self-confidence getting stronger. I might have been more careful about some of our activities if I hadn't noticed such a positive change in her life. She was just happy. Amy said that Lydia felt good because she knew I cared for her and appreciated her just as she was. It seemed that the flowers made a big difference. I hadn't really thought about giving them. It just felt right at that moment. I had given Amy flowers at the start of our first date and on other occasions because I thought it was a nice and sweet thing to do. Lydia's flowers felt like a warm thank you, but because of some situations, they had to be given at a different time. My first real date with Amy was nice, but on my way back to my home where Lydia was waiting, I started to worry if I could meet her needs. Later, I realized I shouldn't have worried. I learned that having control can be very important. From that first night, I saw how much trust Lydia had in me. She relied on me for her care and happiness. This was something she had often written about, wanting someone who would test her limits but also know how to keep things safe. Over the next few months, I thought a lot about how to best support Lydia, but that first night, I went with my gut feeling. I made sure to come into my home as quietly as I could. When I walked in, I saw Lydia sitting peacefully in the living room, her hands resting in her lap. I didn't say anything as I walked over, took her hand gently, and led her to the couch. Wow, Lydia, this is a much nicer way to spend time together. I can really focus on treating Amy with respect without any distractions. I guided her to sit on the edge of the couch, making sure she was comfortable. It feels good to know I can come home and spend time with someone I trust. As I spoke, I helped adjust her skirt to help her feel at ease. Having you here will help me manage my time better. I sat beside her, feeling thankful for the calmness that surrounded us. I tucked a strand of hair behind her ear and gave her a warm smile. I stayed close to her, just making sure she felt comfortable as she relaxed on the couch. After a while, I was tired, but Lydia had already fallen asleep. It was nice to see her resting peacefully. I carried her to the bedroom and gently put her on the bed. I helped her get comfortable by taking off her shoes and adjusting her clothes. I made sure she was okay, carefully removing the handcuffs, and happy that they hadn't left any marks. Then I got a warm cloth from the bathroom and softly wiped her forehead, helping her feel fresh. She sighed softly as I finished. After that, I climbed into bed and held her close until I fell asleep. When I woke up the next morning, Lydia was still sleeping peacefully. I didn't want to wake her, but it didn't matter because she was sound asleep. I took a shower, got dressed, and placed a bouquet of flowers on a pillow next to her. I worried about how Lydia would feel when she woke up. When Amy came over for breakfast and Lydia was still in bed, I felt a wave of panic. When Amy went to check on Lydia and didn't come back for nearly 40 minutes, I knew something might be wrong. When Amy came out of the bedroom with tears in her eyes, I knew something was wrong. But when she walked over, gave me a warm hug, and smiled at me, I started to feel better. "You are such a wonderful person," she said. Then Lydia walked into the room with the biggest smile I had ever seen, holding flowers like they were precious. Finally, I felt like I could relax and breathe easy. Leaving Omaha for the last time was a big moment for me. I had been telling myself that I was okay after Anne-Marie's hurtful actions in our marriage. I believed I was starting fresh with a new career and a stable life. I thought that was enough, but I realized that I truly needed closure and peace. I understood now that I was looking for happiness. On the way home, I stopped at a store to pick up a few things. It didn't take long, and having some money made things easier. My daughters were happy to see me, and like always, we sat down to dinner together. Our conversation was light and cheerful. Life felt good for us, and I thought about how I could make it even better. Amy and Lydia cleaned the table and went to the kitchen to wash the dishes. I stood behind them for a bit, just watching them work together, happily taking on a dull task because they were together. "I get why we haven't grown closer yet," I said. Lydia turned to look at me, but Amy kept her eyes on the sink. "When we connect for the first time, it will be for something very special. The purpose of being together is to share our lives and dreams. That's why we're all here. But you will have an important part, too. You will help Lydia and me achieve what we can't do alone. Only you can give us what we really want. You will give us the most special gift anyone can give, a child." Lydia smiled, but tears flowed down her cheeks. "I think you have been waiting for me to understand this." "I believe you've waited long enough." I knelt down and took out the box from my pocket. As I opened it, Lydia jumped with joy and softly clapped her hands. Amy turned to me slowly, tears in her eyes. "Amy, will you marry me?" "Yes, Gavin, I will marry you, and I will love you forever." In a beautiful moment, Amy and Lydia hugged each other first. This showed how close we were and how much we all needed each other. Each of us brought something special that made our lives complete. I placed the ring on Amy's finger and Lydia smiled, sharing in our happiness. "It's such a lovely ring, Gavin. Oh, I could never forget you, dear. You will always be an important part of our lives, and I want you to know I remember that." Then I took out a second box from my pocket and opened it, showing an ankle bracelet with a lovely design. It had a diamond in the center of a Celtic knot, with 3 stones in the corners, a ruby, a sapphire, and an amethyst. "Lydia, we love you and we need you. Please stay with us." Amy's eyes filled with tears, but Lydia was calm as I gently placed the bracelet on her ankle. "I am home, Gavin. I am not going anywhere." Then, with surprising strength, Amy took my arm and pulled me to my feet. She kissed Lydia on the cheek as she guided me toward the bedroom. "Amy, honey, where are we going?" "To practice, Gavin. We need to practice." That night, Amy showed me a kind of warmth and closeness I had never known before. Her love felt gentle and sincere, and she kept me close the whole time. She held me tightly, and we felt a strong bond between us. We moved together, adjusting as we enjoyed being with each other. Our movements were full of care, fitting together perfectly. "I love you, Gavin, so much." "I love you too, Amy, with all my heart." 3 months later, we got married in a small ceremony, with Lydia by Amy's side and Rothschild next to me. 6 months after that, we welcomed Aidan James O'Connor into our family. A year and a half later, we celebrated the arrival of twins, Sophia Marie and Stephen Michael. 11 months later, baby Olivia Rose completed our family. Our boys looked like me, while Sophia looked just like a younger version of Amy. Olivia looked so much like Lydia, creating a lovely bond among them. Did Amy or I ever feel jealous that Olivia seemed to connect with Lydia more than with us? Not at all. Amy and I had a strong partnership, almost like a marriage, but Lydia was always part of our lives. While our arrangement was not the usual kind, there were times when Amy would suggest I spend time with Lydia. As the years went by, we shared fewer special moments together, mostly because of the demands of raising our children and our family duties. At first, I was happy in my role, but I faced challenges that made me forget that joy. It took some time, but I finally found my happiness and sense of belonging again. Our family life felt complete and peaceful. I loved Amy, Lydia, and our kids very much, and they loved me back. Lydia was always there for us, caring for our family. We kept our special way of living to ourselves, sharing it with only a few close friends. Together, we found joy in our everyday lives.